Good morning, everyone. Everybody's having too much fun out there today. Good morning. We're going to get started here real quick. Full house. I like it. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Today is August 18th, 2026. It's the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley. Doug Verboon is absent. Rusty Robinson.
Here.
Robert Thayer.
Here. All right. Let's see. Invocation. Pastor Lori Niles, Layton Church of the Nazarene. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you. Please join me. Almighty Creator, you who see leadership at the very highest of levels and who see the very most lowly in our communities, we ask for wisdom for this board this morning to be able to act with justice and mercy and wisdom. Bless each one of them in their personal lives as well as in their community lives. Give them insights that make them effective and help them to always act in the best interests of the least of these. We ask these things for your sake. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Marie Waite, want to lead us in the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to get on to recognition. Carrie, are you presenting or Marie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Carrie Martinez, County Executive Officer, Kings County. Before you this morning, we have the employee of the second quarter of 2026. The board approved the formation of the Employee Recognition Committee in 1990. Every quarter, employees are nominated based on their outstanding performance and achievement in various departments. The nominations were reviewed and voted upon by the Employee Committee on July 7th. The board did approve the Kings County Employee Recognition Program, and the policy changed that the employee of the quarter would be eligible to win the Employee of the Year, which would get a full paid vacation leave for a week. So this employee that is getting recognition today will be in the pool for next year. And so I would like to invite Marie Waite to the podium to present the Employee of the Quarter.
Marie Waite, Director of Child Support Services. Thank you for this opportunity to honor excellence at Child Support Services this morning. Since beginning her journey with Kings County Child Support Services as an intern in 2016, Cassie has consistently demonstrated adaptability, a strong commitment to professional growth. Over the past decade, she has become a cornerstone of the department, mastering new skills quickly and always supporting her colleagues in Kings County. Cassie's technical expertise in child support matters draws on her extensive experience as a caseworker. Her positive attitude fosters collaboration, and she is a passionate advocate for departmental initiatives. Cassie's genuine care elevates the team, making her a trusted resource for both daily tasks and new challenges. Cassie stands out as an employee whose dependability and kindness makes her invaluable to our department. She regularly checks in on teammates and offers assistance, radiating warmth and encouragement. Cassie exemplifies the values we hold dear, and every department would benefit from having a Cassie. While we are here to acknowledge Cassie as an employee of the quarter, I would also like you to join me in celebrating Cassie's promotion to Child Support Services Program Manager. August truly is her month. Congratulations, Cassie.
Well, congratulations, Cassie. You want to say a few words?
Not really, but I will. I would just like to say thank you, Marie, and Child Support Services. It's truly an honor working for you and the county. I truly enjoy helping people and being in public service and hopefully making a positive impact on our community. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Marie wrote that or who wrote the bio, but I'd like them to do my eulogy, please. It's very flattering.
I could do that for you.
All right. All right, you guys want to meet me in the well here so we can take a picture?
Yes. So Child Support Services team, can we take a big group picture and then if you want to pare it down from there? whatever works. I mean, you can pretend you work for child support if you just want to be in the picture. I know.
Yeah, they can. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Pretty smart.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Yeah, so you might have been confused by a valley fever resolution. Okay, I see a few posse guys out there today, and I think there's going to be a presentation. So who do we welcome? Who's doing the presenting? Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dave Putnam, Kings County Sheriff. And like you mentioned, that we come before you this morning to recognize our sheriff's posse, like we do typically once a year. And it's a joyous occasion because we get to receive a big check from the Kings County Sheriff's Posse. As you probably know, the Sheriff's Posse has been in existence for nearly 70 years. This is the 69th year. I want to make sure I say that. 89th year, almost 90 years. Okay, 89. I should have did the research on that one prior to approaching the podium. But as you know, the Sheriff's Posse participates throughout the Central Valley and Central Coast.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sheriff. Let me read something real quick,
Okay,
just so the public's aware.
I'm
We're
sorry.
doing this today as under unscheduled, and let me read that. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items of interest within the board's jurisdiction and which are not already on the agenda. The board will not answer questions impromptu, and concerns or complaints will be referred to appropriate staff. For items which are on the agenda, members of the public will be provided with an opportunity to address the board on each item brought up for discussion. Speakers should limit their comments to no more than 2 minutes. Apologize, Sheriff. Go ahead.
Thank you. And we did fill out a speaker card, so we're good to go. Like you said, the Sheriff's Posse has been in existence for nearly 90 years. It's their 89th year. They participate in equestrian events and parades and do a great job of representing the Sheriff's Office in Kings County throughout the Central Valley and the Central Coast. Each year, the Posse hosts a crab feed fundraiser at Burris Park, and another opportunity to highlight our Sheriff's Posse and highlight one of the beautiful parks in Kings County. This year, and obviously this event's turned into a can't miss and an annual event for many people in the community, and it's the primary fundraiser for the Sheriff's Posse, and ultimately results in the funds that get donated to the Sheriff's Office to use for a variety of things. In some of the funds, this year the Posse's made a generous donation to the Sheriff's Office in the amount of $15,000. Which it's been deposited with the Kings County Sheriff's Foundation account, and with this deposit in this account, it gives my office the discretion to use the funds for a wide variety of things. If we need to use it for explorer events, competitions, if we were to lose a canine tragically in the line of duty, we could purchase one real quick with some of these funds. If we need pieces for our air unit or mounted enforcement unit, just gives us the flexibility with this. So super grateful to accept this donation this year. And just to remind everybody, this year's crab feed is being held on August 29th at Burris Park, 6 p.m. Let's make sure I say that one right. All you can eat Dungeness crab, tri-tip, appetizers, and of course, a variety of adult beverages. And the Posse still has some tickets available, correct? We still have some. Contact any Posse member if you'd like your tickets. And I'd like to invite anybody from the Posse who would like to say a few words.
Come on up, gentlemen.
Guys want to come up to the front?
Hey, we like you guys. You know, it's been a tough budget year, and you guys come bearing gifts. We're going to invite you more often.
Well, like the sheriff said, the Kings County Sheriff Posse was formed in 1937. Sheriff Luther Loftus was our first president and continued to be the president until he left office. And then the next sheriff was in charge of the sheriff posse from there on. Just want to give you a little tidbit of information. Our maroon shirts are part of our uniform, and also we use tan pants. That was decided upon in 1938. So we continue the tradition of our uniform. Another tidbit of information, the sheriff posse actually purchased the first K9 unit dog for the sheriff's office back when Sheriff Tom Clark was the sheriff. Since that first K9, the sheriff posse has donated funds to the sheriff office since then. We have only one major fundraiser a year. That's our crab feed. Sheriff already said it was at Burst Park this year on August 29th. And with that, we're ready to present the check.
Yes, sir. How often do posse guys hop on a horse? I won't ask Doug because he's
Okay.
probably on a horse every
Posse
day.
this year is riding 10 parades. We ride all the numerous parades around the valley here, as well as Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, Paso Robles, and Salinas. Okay.
Sheriff, when we got our new sheriff, I told him that I had a horse he could ride. He respectfully, declined that opportunity. So, but we still got that old horse ready for him. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. Sorry, I'll wait for the chairman. Thank you again. I appreciate you indulging me a little bit last minute notice. Still on a little jet lag. I was in the Azores Islands for a couple of weeks. Got a little vacation, so we put this off till a little closer to their crab feed. We would traditionally do this a little sooner in the year, but thank you again. Appreciate it.
Any bullfights, Sheriff?
Yes, every day there was bullfights. We got to see 5 different islands. It's festas were going on like crazy. Got to use my Portuguese. My wife got to see the island she was born on and the island her family was from. So back at it. Got away from here for a couple of weeks, but thank you.
Bon dia, sir. Thank you.
Bom dia. Delog.
All right. So, Madam Clerk.
Under unscheduled, do have 2 pieces of correspondence. Then the board did receive from Keith Tiger Jackson and Ricardo and Sheila Verdugo, and those will become part of the permanent record of today.
Okay. Anybody online?
Doesn't appear anyone online has their hand raised. I do have a speaker, but it's for an item for the valley fever item.
Okay. All right. Very good. Anybody in the audience who would like to speak today? Going. Okay. We'll move on. Item 4 is approval of the minutes. Report out of closed session from the regular meeting on August 11, 2026. Madam Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board took no reportable action in closed session at the August 11th meeting.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting for August 11, 2026. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Supervisor Thayer? Supervisor, okay, Supervisor Neves. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Joe Neves.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
All right.
Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Okay, consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. If a board member has questions, requests additional information, or wishes to comment on an item, the vote should not be taken until after questions have been addressed or comments made and the public has had an opportunity to comment on the consent calendar items. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? All right, entertain a motion.
So.
Supervisor Thayer.
Second.
All right, Supervisor Neves, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was fast. Regular calendar items. So we're going to go to item A, which is elections. Lupe, you out there? Good morning, sir.
Morning. Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Lupe Villa with the Elections Office. Hope you guys are having a good morning. I come before you to present and to ask that your board adopt a resolution before you that is approving the consolidation of the November 3rd, 2026 general election. Pursuant to California Elections Code 1002, the governing body of any city or district may by resolution request the Board of Supervisors of the county to permit the county elections official to render specified services to the city or district relating to the conduct of an election. The Kings County Elections Department received resolutions from cities, districts throughout Kings County, including the Board of Education, community colleges, high schools, unified schools, and elementary school districts, as well as cities and special districts, and one request for a TOT tax, transient tax for the city of Lemoore, Measure P. There are several codes that provide guidance and give directions to our local governing bodies on the responsibilities to submit to your board a resolution seeking election services to include consolidation of such election with the statewide general election to be held November 3rd. By adopting the resolution to consolidate, there will be only one election held instead of concurrent elections throughout Kings County. In accordance with Elections Code 1002, each entity will receive an invoice for the election services provided, and they'll pay their respective costs for each of their municipalities or districts. I respectfully ask that your board adopt the resolution for consolidation with the November 3rd, 2026 general election. The resolution has been reviewed and approved by County Council as to form, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Lupe? Comment? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Is there a reason public why under cities, City Avenue is not listed?
If you may recall, back July 10th, Friday, there was a special meeting held by your board, and the resolution was adopted by your board, specific for Avenel because of the timing. They were not going to have enough time to submit the resolution by a deadline, which is August 7th, I believe it was. So here we are. We thought Avenel, that was approved July 10th, and all the other resolutions were received. We did have a delay of one of the resolutions from the Armona district. They submitted theirs late, but we're able to capture it and submit with the board, with the packet that you guys have in front of you. They were extensive. I mean, there's about 250 documents that were submitted as part of this request. So that's the reason for Avenel not being on the list.
And then lastly, if you don't mind, can you get a copy of with clerk of the board reported out correspondence from Ricardo and Sheila Verdugo? It's got a lot of questions on there specific to the upcoming election. Maybe you can read that and consider how you might want to get some of this information out again, because they're asking for a clarification, specifically the City Avenue.
Okay.
It's all listed on here.
So I don't have a copy of that correspondence, but I'll be more than happy to review and submit any questions or concerns that you guys may have. Okay. Well, I'm ready anytime, so just let me know. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So I'm seeking the approval for the adoption of the resolution.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Anybody in the audience? All right, entertain a motion.
Move is presented.
Supervisor Neves, Supervisor Valley. All right, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Rusty Robinson,
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
All right. Thank you, guys. Hope you guys have a good day. Thanks.
Okay, Rose, are you presenting to us?
I'm introducing.
Almost gave
Good-
away your resolution.
I know, it's okay. Good morning, Rosemary Rand, Department of Public Health Chairman, Supervisors. My honor to introduce our Public Health Program Manager, David Long, and our Nursing Director, Zarina Martinez, and Dr. Teskey will be presenting this item.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. This is Dave Long, Program Manager for Public Health. Thank you for allowing our department the opportunity to address you this morning. August is Valley Fever Awareness Month. And so we would like to share with you some key information about Valley Fever. who's at higher risk and what the impact is on Kings County and what public health is doing to improve awareness and preparation. Understanding valley fever is particularly important because, as you know, the San Joaquin Valley is one of the areas where it's high risk for people. There's a lot more disease occurs here. The next slide, please. Valley fever begins with a fungus that grows in the soil naturally. And when that soil is disturbed, the spores become airborne. And infection occurs when people breathe that spore into their lungs. Exposure doesn't always mean illness. The CDC reports that in about 60% of the cases, people who become infected never develop any symptoms. But for those who do become sick, the symptoms look a lot like other respiratory illnesses, like pneumonia, and that makes valley fever particularly difficult to identify early. Because the fungus is present in our environment, anyone who lives or works or spends a lot of time outdoors can be exposed. And the risk increases when people take part in activities that disturb the soil or create a lot of dust. Even during periods of strong wind, people can be infected more often. And this makes education and awareness more important for our area, especially for agricultural workers and construction workers and people who regularly work outdoors. There are certain individuals who can develop more serious complications. According to the CDC, this includes people who have compromised immune systems, or people who are elderly, people who have diabetes, and pregnant women. And there are some racial and ethnic groups, including Black and Filipino individuals. And those factors are important for us as public health to determine how we reach out to our community to develop more awareness. We focus on those people who are at higher risk. Valley fever can be difficult to identify because, like I said, the symptoms look a lot like pneumonia and other respiratory illnesses. And as a result, a lot of the patients who go to receive help are initially diagnosed with some other illness and are treated for that rather than for valley fever. The CDC reports that patients often receive antibiotics, but until the true cause is identified. And unfortunately, antibiotics won't help in this case because it's a fungus. And so it's not very effective at all. So strengthening provider awareness of valley fever is especially important in their early response. Most people who develop valley fever recover, but it can take longer than expected. Fatigue can continue for weeks or even months. A smaller percentage of people will develop more serious complications, and this happens when the infection spreads beyond the lungs. And it can go into your skin and into your bones and even into the membrane around your brain. The CDC estimates that about 1% of people will develop more serious consequences. And that's because the immune system can't contain the infection. And that doesn't sound like a lot of people, just 1%, but with the numbers that we're looking at of people that are exposed and that develop complications, it continues to rise. And so that's why awareness and early recognition is so important so that the treatment can begin right away. The department's nursing director, Zarina Martinez, is going to now share with you how valley fever is affecting Kings County and what public health is doing to strengthen awareness and preparation.
Morning, Zarina.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. This slide brings the issue closer to home. In 2025, 323 valley fever cases were reported in Kings County. In comparison, 167 cases were reported in 2020, meaning that the number of reported cases within the 5-year time period doubled. After 2023's extensive flooding and the reemergence of Tulare Lake, we saw a significant case increase in the following year in 2024. This is worth paying attention to because research suggests that environmental and climate conditions can influence valley fever. Wet winters after a drought may help the fungus grow, and dry, windy weather following summer and fall can help the fungus get into the air. Increases in dirt-disturbing activities such as construction in high-risk areas, Kings County is considered a high-risk area, may also contribute to valley fever being reported. Although Kings County reported fewer cases in 2025 compared to 2024, the overall health impact to Kings County residents remain high. The incidence rate of valley fever in Kings County in 2025 was 209.3 per 100,000. In comparison, Fresno's incidence rate for the same time period was 93 per 100,000. That means in 2025, the rate of new cases were higher in Kings County compared to Fresno County. Okay. Looking at the cases geographically gives us another useful perspective. The data shown on the slide excludes the prison population. Valley fever does not affect every part of Kings County equally. The department's local surveillance data shows that Avenel and Calumet City have consistently experienced some of the greatest valley fever burden in the county. Valley fever is also an occupational health concern. California's Assembly Bill 203 in 2019 requires construction employers working in counties where the disease is highly endemic. The state defines highly endemic as annual incidence rate of 20 per 100,000 to provide annual valley fever awareness training for their employees. For public health, understanding both where the cases are occurring and which population may experience greater exposure can help us direct outreach where it can have the most impact. So what are we doing with this information? On July 28th of this year, the board approved an agreement with the managed care plans, which included funding to support valley fever outreach, testing preparedness initiatives focused on community education, clinical training, and improving early recognition of valley fever. Current CDC guidance specifically encourages healthcare providers in the San Joaquin Valley to consider valley fever testing when evaluating patients with respiratory illnesses. The goal is not just to do more testing, the goal is to increase awareness among healthcare providers so that the disease can be identified and treated earlier. Community education is another important part of that work. The department wants residents to understand how exposure can occur, recognize potential symptoms, and know when it may be appropriate to ask their healthcare provider about valley fever. Before we move on into questions about today's presentation, I would like to introduce our County Health Officer, Dr. Milton Teskey.
Hi, Doctor. Welcome.
Hello, glad to be here. And just prior to becoming the county health officer here, which I have been for the last 10 years, I'm full-time emergency medicine physician here in town. I had the privilege in 1984 of opening the new emergency services at Hanford Community Medical Center. And then again, in December of 2010, I also opened and saw the first patient at the new facility, which we now use here, Adventist Medical Center. And, during that time, emergency physicians are in a unique position. We have the opportunity and the privilege of being the ones that are there for all of us at the hour of our greatest distress and need and vulnerability. And you can count on an ER doc being there. But I want to share with you this morning an experience that I had as an ER doc here that has forever impressed on my mind the devastating effects of this disease. There was a man, he was probably in his late 30s, and he was a legal immigrant come to us here from Ethiopia. Dark black skin, and when I saw him for the first time in the emergency room, he had already been diagnosed with valley fever. It was disseminated. It was spreading through his body. They had not gotten it early on and gotten the thing about this disease is if you get it early, fluconazole takes care of it. It's sensitive to the right antibiotic, the antifungal fluconazole. But in his case, he hadn't gotten that early. It was not diagnosed early, and this had spread. He had, definitely a susceptibility to it, and it had spread through his body, through his bones, causing him excruciating pain, and which is why he would appear to the ER. And not only through the bones, but growing out from the bones out through the skin, and on his dark black skin, you see these white spots. The fungus is just totally infected his body, and these white spots coming out everywhere. And he had the best infectious disease care that could be done here in the valley. And I saw him periodically over about 6 months, and then he died. Even going to amphotericin B and all of the stuff like that, they weren't able to save him, and he lived a miserable thing. And just to see, his face and his body and his skin, periodically over those times really pressed how bad this is if we don't get it early. And a week ago, I had the privilege of meeting with a group of African American women here at the behavioral health here, led by Paula Massey. And I'm going to ask Paula Massey to come up and share with you her story. But the one question I left everybody to remember as the takeaway point from our discussions there with her and the people there was, could this be valley fever? Asking that question right up front, if you have systems going down that line, particularly if you have risk factors. The test is very simple and easy to see if you've got valley fever. And once they know you've got it, well, fluconazole, and they give you a prescription of that and it'll clear it up. It's when that doesn't take place. And so my takeaway to them was, remember that question, could this be valley fever? But Paula Massey was the director of this support group for African American women that meets here monthly at Behavioral Health Center. And she has a personal story from here in Kings County that I would like her to share with you. Paula, go ahead.
Good morning, Paula.
I'm going to wait, but I have a son. I have two sons. My first son, he passed away in 2017. Some of you might have known him. They called him Level J. He was the one, we have our skate park. He designed that skate park at the age of 19. And if you talk to some of the people who were at the city, they'll tell you all about him. He was a musician, he was a writer, he was an artist. This is my son, Jeffrey, before Valley Fever in 2008. On October 9th in 2017, October 8, 2017, he woke up that morning, I'm fixing his breakfast, and he's shaking uncontrollably. But that Thursday before that, he told me if he has any more seizures, don't call the ambulance. And I wasn't going to call the ambulance. I was going to try to get him to urgent care because I wanted to, follow his rules. But he got to CMRC, CRMC, and he was induced in a coma. He had a frontal lobe seizure that would not stop, and it was due to valley fever. In 2012, I was living in Phoenix. I got a call and saying that my son was in the hospital, he was sick, but they didn't know what was wrong with him. It took 3 to 4 years later for us to find out that it was valley fever. So he suffered with the mental illness. We didn't know that it had traveled to the brain. So valley fever had traveled to the brain. And then this is his last days, November 1st, 2017 at Hines Hospital. So he went from October 8, 2017 to he passed away November 3rd, 2017. So he was not that old. He was really not that old. So what I want to share with you today, oh God, you need to check it. I'm sorry. That's different. So what I want to share with you today, I didn't know about valley fever. I didn't know about it when they called me and said that he had was sick in the hospital. So when I got back here to him and his friends were over to their house watching a game. They drove, found me, knocked on my door, said he's out here, he's shaking. he wet on himself, he's shaking. So I knew then he had a seizure. So we got the ambulance, and that's when they finally diagnosed him as valley fever. It was like 4 years later. But as I was doing this, I was trying to figure out, where did this valley fever come from? How do we know about it? And so I began doing a lot of research. And on our naval base, a lot of stuff happened on our naval base. There was a family there, and it said the Kings County ranks constantly among California's 3 worst counties for valley fever from at least 2000 to 2013. We had the worst numbers, which we have high numbers now. The Naval Air Station, where the valley fever begins much earlier in the mid-20s. It was when the military researchers teamed up with a prominent epidemiologist to study disease exposure. So when they began studying why there's so much disease, why is there so much sick illness on this base among these military guys, they found this guy, this Dr. Charles Smith. It was a Stanford physician, and he came and he found a lot of ways that we could combat this. He developed the first serum where you could figure out who has valley fever. Now, what Dr. Teskey says, we have to ask these doctors when we go and we had a long cough or we're sweating. I have valley fever. My youngest son has valley fever. My oldest son passed away from valley fever. We lived on the military base. And if anybody was on the military base in the housing knows about Jackrabbit Field. Jackrabbit Field was just a big old field, nothing but dirt and jackrabbits and holes. And you walked across that field so you could get to the jet mart. But I didn't realize until later on, your kids don't tell you, your kids ain't gonna tell you nothing while they're young, what they're doing out there playing. But as they come, Obama, we used to go out there, we used to throw dirt bombs at each other. But we had no symptoms then that we knew of. My youngest one had asthma a lot, but we didn't know nothing about no valley fever. But they moved away up north. They came back. That's when they got sick. I have it, but when I was trying to get the doctor to say, I'm having these night tsunamis, they call them sweats, but I had tsunamis. And I had 2 doctors say, no, you don't have it. Yeah, you got it. No, you don't have 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 it. I had to fight with them to do the test. Just do the test. You're not paying for this. My insurance is going to cover it. And so it took that long for them to realize that, oh, yeah, you got it. But your titers are low, so you don't need stuff. And that's what happened to my second son. He's very sick now. His titers were low, so the doctor took him off his fluconazole. Don't do that. If I had gone there, I would say, no, you're not. You're not taking him off that stuff. He needs that. So now with the spots, he has the spots. I have spots on my arm that I'm coming up with these. I'm not sure whether this is it, but I never had this white spot in about 6 or 7 months ago. It just appeared on my arm. I'm like, what's going on? I'm losing my color. I'm black. So anyway, I just want to let you know, like Dr. Teskey said, ask your doctor. Be persistent. Animals get it. There's a veterinarian in Lemoore. She treats pets who have valley fever. And we got these little dogs with these little scrunched up noses. They walking around. They're easily to get it. And like you said, anybody could get it, but it affects Black people and Filipinos the worst, especially when it gets out, disseminates through your body. I didn't understand why my son always had me to rub his back, and he had a lump on the back of his back. I got that lump too. But I'm still fighting with the doctors to say this. Now, the education, we need to educate our children, not only as adults, because kids are out there playing, okay? I was at one of the schools down the street, on the south side, and one of the schools on the south side, they were getting ready for a school year a couple of years ago. And they had these tarps, but they were out there doing the dirt and everything. Kids were in school. School had already started. So I went to the school district and I told them, I said, hey, y'all out here working on the fields, out here in the schoolyard, you got kids out here. Well, we stopped doing it when the kids go into the classroom, and we stop when they come out. No, it's in the air. You don't disturb that soil. Now, some of the things that we can do is that if you have people who are working in fields or have fields by your house, on the south side, we have a whole lot of fields, especially by the housing. And these guys go out there and they disc their soil all the time without wetting it. I've gone to city council. said, okay, you are turning the water hydrants off and the water's running in the street. Why don't you put that water in a truck? Somebody who's going to dish their field required him to do that. It don't cost any money to put the thing and say, okay, on this day, Mr. John Smith is going to he's going to do his field. We need to get a truck out there to wet that field. Can we just do that? So that soil won't be coming up into my house. I got to keep my windows open because I know how far valley fever travels. When you're outside, you work in your yard or you're doing yard work, put an overall on, put the cover all on. And before you go in your house, take that off. Take those shoes off. Leave them out in a place where it's not going to be disturbed, okay, until you're able to wash it and get it clean again. Because as you're walking and you're working in your yard, you come out, some spores could be on you. You're sitting on your chair, you're laying your baby on your chair, you're doing all kinds of things. So valley fever is hard. It was a tough journey for me. It was a tough journey for his family. But we went to Sacramento, and what you said was true. The people who are working in these places where they're working in soil, where they're working on these solar panels. There was a big old thing about solar panels. There was a young man I had met. He got valley fever after Jeffrey. He was working in the solar fields. And they told him, this solar company says, if you get valley fever, before you get valley, we want you to fill out this waiver that if you get valley fever, you cannot blame it on us. And I shared that in Sacramento. And I had a guy from OSHA come, and they were putting it out that if anybody who's working in fields, yard workers, their company has to provide for them the protection. I go to my neighbors, I see kids, I said, hey, do you know about valley fever? I said, do you want to see a picture? Yeah, you don't want this to happen to you. So I'm going to give you another look at this here. He never got a chance to see his son's 4th birthday. And when he passed away, his son, they brought him over to the house, my grandson over to the house. He didn't believe that his dad was gone. He went back to the room and looked for his dad and didn't see his dad there. So he's grown up without his dad because he's turned 4 years old. So take care of yourselves, take care of people. Put your mask on, your N95 mask, right, Dr. Teskey? Yeah. And when you're going out there because I've known people who just planting stuff in their yard. I have a habit of going out there myself, killing gophers. Y'all know about my gophers. Oh, that thing was over a pound. And I'm killing. So I'm digging into the dirt. I gotta get this gopher. He's huge. And if I don't get him, he's gonna make more babies, right? I'm up there like, I hate to do this. I had to kill him. So, when you're digging up holes and different stuff, be careful. Put your mask on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Paula.
As we close our presentation, I want to emphasize that we cannot remove the fungus from the soil, but we can continue working to ensure residents are equipped to reduce exposure, to recognize the symptoms, to obtain an early diagnosis and effective treatment. The department has prepared a proclamation for the board to formally recognize August as Valley Fever Awareness Month in Kings County. And with that, Chairman and members of the board, thank you for your ongoing support for our Valley Fever awareness and preparation efforts. Thank you. If you have any questions, we're available to help.
So I have a question. So if you've already had it, are you more susceptible to get it again?
No, but you can get it again.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the Black, Filipino, immunocompromised don't get it any more frequently than anyone else. The difference is when they do get it, it can get worse. It has the ability to worsen there. But yeah, you can get reoccurrences, but it's very rare. Generally speaking, you get actually very good what we call acquired immunity. You have antibodies against it. The actual genetic defects that make some people more susceptible are in what we call the innate immune system. It's the part of your immune system that attacks something before you make antibodies, before that. And so it allows it to spread and get out of control before we find out about it and not able to hold it back in check like we should.
Aren't they able to determine if you've had it based on scarring the lungs?
Yeah, we can do a coxi titer, and the coxi titer will tell us, oh, okay, yeah, you've had antibodies, you've had this in the past, you've got immunity to it. And there's different types of it. There's an IgG antibody. That's the one that says, yeah, you've had this in the past, and your antibodies are there protecting you. Your guards are on patrol. Your checkpoints, they have the ID. They know who they're looking for coming through the check gates. And if they see it, they're right on it. Within 10 hours, you can get a good antibody response if you got the memory cells there, the IgG. On the acute infection, there's an IgM. And if IgM is elevated, oh, wow, I think we've got an acute infection going on.
My father had it, and I think he must have had a light case of it, but he was one of the hardest working men I knew. And every day he'd come home for lunch and take like a 1 hour nap, which he never did. And he did this for months. And then thankfully kind of went away, and he was able to just resume. But I think that's a real light case.
Yeah, in most cases, the immune system will work properly, and these are the type of responses we get. Most of you that have lived in the valley for years and years are probably immune to it. You got a few spores this day and a few more that day, and your body made antibodies against them, sort of like a vaccine. Whereas, like the gentleman I told you about, a new immigrant that had come there. There was no coxi in Ethiopia, and he had no prior exposure to it. And he came right here to the worst spot in the world for coxi and breathed the air here. And, and it wasn't diagnosed early enough, and it just spread through him something terrible.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, Supervisor Bailey.
Yes, question, sir. Is testing done in areas where, like for large construction projects that take place in our area, and let's say they're going to go get the dirt from this part of Kings County and dig up a whole bunch of dirt to use it for construction of a project? The area where all the dirt's going to be dug out and used for the project, does that get tested first?
I'm not aware of any testing that's being done. The only testing I know of is in research. They'll go and test areas, and I can tell you that the area moves around, from the research. There's some areas out there by Kettleman and Avenel out there where it's really bad there along 5. There are other areas that come up, but then in other years, it'll be growing somewhere else. And the assumption, the safest assumption, it's everywhere. It's in the dirt here in Central County. It's in Fresno County, Tulare County, Kern County, and we're right in the middle here at Kings County, and we have it. There's also some spots in Arizona, New Mexico, and Western Texas that have some. And those are the spots where you can get it. But we're right in the middle of the workplaces. Assume if the wind is blowing, it's in the air. And by the way, the masks that we all wore through COVID don't help. It's a respiratory, it's a small, minute, microscopic virus that can't be seen, felt, tasted, anything. If the wind's blowing, it's picked up, it's floating invisibly in the air. And try to stay indoors, or, if there's dust around particularly, and have an N95 mask on, and don't breathe that stuff in.
And why would health officials be reluctant to test for it? Is it an expensive test?
No. It's a common test. I can tell you from experience here, the physicians in this community, they're aware of coxi. And I tell you, the key that they will use to decide to test or not test is, your cough hasn't gone away in a couple of weeks. We better check for coxi or TB. Those are the two biggies that keep going on. And they don't go away if you don't actually find it out and treat it. And so that's what will be the key. And I think every resident coming out today, they all, had a cough going for a couple of weeks, TB and coxi, and they'll do the test. But it's good for the community to know, hey, I'm getting these night sweats, I'm getting the thing, ask the doctor, ask him, could this be, okay, let's check for that, and I think that's the response you would get if somebody was asking for the test. Generally, that would be my take on the physicians here in Kings County.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Neves?
Second with a comment. Wasn't there a speaker card, Catherine? Oh, got it. Yeah, second.
All right, Supervisor Thayer, Madam Clerk.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley, Rusty Robinson.
Yes.
Robert Thayer.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yep. You go down to the well? Okay.
Paula, if you want to join us.
Okay, I think we're going on to a study session. Chief, floor is yours.
Texting Stephanie, try and get this up and running on the PowerPoint. Maybe not. Are you on Teams with her at all? Bear with me, sorry. She's trying. There we go. So good morning, Chair, board members, staff. I have with me this morning Jennifer Thompson from Lozano, Chuck from CDA, and Noel from CDA, and Christy Lee from the assessor's office as well. And I also have our labor unit president, Ed Ryman, on the back end of this if you guys should have questions, which I expect you probably will when we're all done with this. I neglected to add Valley Fever to my presentation. Obviously, we need to add that in there somewhere. So I apologize for that, but thank you for the opportunity to present today. Next slide, please. So what we're here to talk about today is basically how the solar generation facilities specifically are affecting Kings County Fire Department. We have 7 topics basically to quickly cover. I promised you we had an 8-page staff report, which gave me carpal tunnel, and a binder of notebooks of study material related to this. But the key thing was that this is to enhance that report I gave you, basically to make you understand more specifically, because I can only put so much information in that staff report. It's important to understand the global picture of the impact that we're experiencing. Next slide, please. So for calendar year 2025, Kings County Fire responded to 5,609 calls for service, 5,337 in 2024. It's results in a 5.1 overall increase in calls for service. And our current staffing is budgeted for 94 positions, including the 1 new plan checker, 86 total suppression personnel, 3 administrative support. Obviously, we have the 4 personnel in OES, and we're currently holding 5 vacancies because of the Avenal situation. It's important to note, yeah, it looks like 5,609 calls is not a lot of call volume per se for our department, but what's important to understand is because of our staffing model, oftentimes, I would say greater than 50% of the time, we have to respond multiple engine companies to get the proper amount of personnel on scene to actually mitigate the issue. Next slide, please. A quick overview of the Kings County Fire Department fleet, and we've been through the SALAS funds and some grant opportunities, the CDBG. We've been able to improve this situation dramatically, but you can read through it real quick of what's going on there. The years are behind it specifically to what the shelf life and depreciation schedule really should be related to it. The Type 1 fire engines, we have 4 that are currently greater than 10 years, so they're approaching even with the new input we've done. We do have multiple other resources in there that are approaching their shelf life as well. The important part of this, and the reason I bring this up, is because we're currently looking nationwide at about a 2 to 3 year build time on new fire engines from the day we order them. So it's not like I can just run down to the local car dealership and buy what I need and be able to put that in service. Chief vehicles, it sounds like there's a lot of them, but in reality, what we do is we put 100,000 miles on them and we roll them over to the utilities and phase the others out. And those go out on our overhead assignments and whatnot. Next slide, please. Basically, Kings County facilities, all the highlighted stuff is important to look at because basically the shelf life for a fire station is about 50 years. Every one of the highlighted components there are either have exceeded or are approaching that. So basically we have 4 of our 12 facilities that are in line with what expected life expectancy would be. And this will all tie in at the end, I promise. Next slide. So the current status of the solar generation in Kings County, it's currently 28 commercial solar facilities operational and online, roughly 18,296 plus or minus a couple acres. And the current output roughly is 2,078 megawatts of power. Also approved in various phases of development and construction are an additional 20 projects with an additional 560 megawatts of power. And that also will encompass another almost 4,000 acres of land. Again, they are developed or they are approved and for development and moving slowly at their own pace. Next slide, please. So here's some important stats for you. Kings County is number 13 out of all California counties for solar production. I actually thought we were a little bit higher than that, but that's currently where we're at. We're number 328 out of 2,193 counties nationwide. This next bullet point, though, to me is the most important one. Kings County produces approximately 3% of the overall energy needed for the state of California. We're transitioning rapidly. By 2045, the mandate is that we'll be carbon neutral and basically it'll all be renewable. As we continue to march forward, that footprint is only going to get deeper and more complex in Kings County. Solar production increased 23.8% between 24 and 25, and we anticipate it actually accelerating on that pace as renewables become more prevalent. And finally, at the bottom of it, you notice it says solar production overtook natural gas production as far as power is concerned last year. So they augment it now with natural gas. What used to be the defining power source is now the alternate. Next slide. Kings County CDA staff are currently reviewing 3 applications. These 3 additional applications that are in various phases of review are going to generate greater than 2,800 megawatts. And they're going to eat a footprint of an additional 22,306 acres. That doubles the footprint with just those 3 projects of where we're currently at with solar. So, and if you actually remember back what I emphasized about the 3% of the total volume of California energy, we're going to bump from 3 to 5 overnight as soon as those guys go online. So let me apologize in advance if anybody's colorblind related to this. The next slide specifically shows, next slide, please. Hopefully this doesn't look like a blob. Basically what you're looking at is the maroon or deep red areas are areas that will not be affected by solar. Those will not be allowed on rezoning. They're specific to agricultural development and significant levels of importance. But everything else pretty much is in play from the orange, mustard, yellow, and gray areas of the county. Those are available to potentially be applied for. Next slide. In the subsequent slide, you're going to see it actually shows the land use areas as they're zoned currently. AL10 excludes solar generation. That's primarily on the north end of the county. AX zones are basically along the Lemoore Naval Air Station. So there's also not available to necessarily expand into. So that's primarily the north and extreme west side. AG20 and AG40 actually are a cumulative 416,541 potential acres. And what's been described to me is basically south of Kansas is pretty much what's in play at this point. If you, next slide. And again, basically you're looking at the greater bottom half of the county. You can almost make those out. If you can see that at home, it's basically all AG40. Next slide. As of yesterday, we responded to year-to-date 24 solar-related fires. Based on the responses, or we base our responses on the information that's provided via the caller. Sometimes we get calls directly from the facility. Sometimes we get them by passerbys. Oftentimes it's the facility themselves that call us, give us an access point, which is helpful for us and efficient. Tell us what vehicle it is and where to meet them so they can provide us access in there, because it's energized electrical. It's difficult for us to access and not get our personnel placed in a situation of great danger. Our typical response to a solar field is not threatening any additional structures, is one chief officer and then 3 or 4 type 3 engines and a bulldozer. Without any other resources being committed or any other resources being out, that empties out over 40% of our stations for one event. And these events are not, they are very time consuming, very resource intensive. Coincidentally, earlier this year, I had reported out to you that Dozer 9 had burned up. It was not a solar field fire, particularly that caused the fire. We actually are attributing that to a power line issue, but because of it basically burned through a solar field, that entirely changed our tactics and strategies related to how we were handling it. And that put us in a compromised position, ultimately leading to the burnover of the Dozer. Next slide. So what does this mean? So basically, when we get a solar field fire, it starts what I call the Kings County shuffle. Basically, our priority stations are Corcoran. It's our busiest station in the county. Our Mona Station 5 would be our next busiest or priority base station based on its locality. Kettleman City, South Hanford Station 4 out on Houston and 43, and then ultimately the Island District. What's important to note about this is the bottom part, which is based on the priorities, and we start the shuffle of resources moving around to meet the greater mission of Kings County Fire. Basically, Burris Park, Hardwick, Lemoore, Stratford, and even Avenal, if it's online, they're going to be empty. That's important to look at for the communities, and this is impacting local communities for something that's not benefiting the local community, if that makes sense. Next slide. So the related impacts to commercial solar agreement or solar generating facilities, specifically related to our automatic gate agreements, and we've been reviewing all these. We do have access to 2 engines from Fresno County Fire, 2 engines from Hanford, but since they only have 3, we try only tap 1. We can go to Tulare on a very small strip between the county. That's what our agreement is for. Lemoore volunteers are available to us, but they're not always available to respond. NAS can come off campus or off base, but they're not always readily available, and nor do we want to tap them for a mission that's going to be long term. And then state prisons are more than adequately available to us, but they have their own mission tasking. Next slide. So the financial implications. So the typical response, believe it or not, is usually 4+ hours. Sometimes they run multiple operational periods, can actually expand more than a day, depending on what's actually occurring, what materials burning, and then ultimately what resources we need to leave deployed. Cooperative agreements can only go so far. We would not anticipate borrowing resources from another agency and then holding them while we're handling our mission. At some point, we have to make a decision. Are we going to recall people through their MOU, give them mandatory impact related to overtime hours incurred, et cetera? And that's even difficult to accomplish because the resources, the staffing desk typically is out of our Burris Park Station. That's one of the first ones we move. So they're now rolling, trying to coordinate staffing to backfill the stations if that's what we're doing. So, and that doesn't even account for the depreciation of our rolling stock fuel, diesels, $5, $6, $7 a gallon, depending on where you buy it right now. And these fire engines are not cheap at over $1 million a piece, depending on what you're rolling. Next slide, please. So how do we get here? The previous agreements were based on the ability to mitigate identified or perceived issues with the solar facilities. 3 of our 4 type 3 fire engines were funded via agreements with developers. That was a one-time purchase as a mitigation. Basically what they did was they said, we don't want to have to keep maintaining these roads. We know you can't get out here with these other pieces of equipment, so we're going to buy you this in exchange for offsetting the issues. Some agencies or developers put money into an escrow account. Basically, we call it the solar fund. And basically that was to buy additional pieces of equipment, technology, radios, infrastructure, things like that. We're buying 2 Type 6 engines and some technology this fiscal year, but that fund is going to be depleted at the end of this year. Historically, there's not necessarily been a uniform approach, which is kind of what we're here to discuss a little bit more about how we want to approach that. And basically the scope and the complexity is only going to get more, I should say, greater in size and scope. Next slide. So the opportunities for addressing this, starting January 1st, 2027, the county assessor's office can begin assessing improvements made on some facilities. And I'll let her speak specifically to this if she wants to in a minute. But my understanding of is basically ownership has to have changed in order for it to be taxable along the way. Sacramento has done a very good job of insulating this and giving exemptions over and over and over again, and that was outlined in the staff report. They allowed it to sunset this year. However, there's even a pushback this year to say they're being directed how much they actually can assess versus what the true market value is, and they're looking at it as a cash basis versus a cost basis. So they're looking at two different avenues from a Sacramento perspective. So again, I'll let Chrissy talk about it here in just a couple minutes. I'm sure you have some questions for all of us when we're all done. But there's two other examples that I want to talk about that we can actually review. Next slide, please. So the first one is a community benefit agreement. And then that's basically a direct agreement, and it's a legal binding contract that's entered into between the developer and the affected entity. Fire department typically has about 85%, maybe a little bit more of the mission tasking once the actual plants are done. We go out and do the code enforcement related to the weed abatement. We go out and make all the contacts, make sure they're in compliance. I will tell you the fire marshal is extremely busy with these facilities. They're constantly trying to push the envelope of what's allowed by code. The code changes pretty much daily. They have opportunities to even skirt some of the fire code based on the battery storage we'll talk about in a couple minutes. The fire code says there's specific distancing if it's a fixed structure and an improvement. However, they consider battery storage a service, so therefore it doesn't fall into the fire code. So it's a free for all on the back end of this, and we're still having to deal with that. And there hasn't been any real legislation to help us with that. These community benefit agreements are available to us through CEQA mitigation efforts. And again, I'm sure Chuck will happily talk about this. They do last the entire term of the contract. They potentially could bypass other tax allocation things. So basically your $1 typically runs through the tax system. 55 cents of it goes to schools, blah, blah, blah. By the time it's done filtering down to the county, we get somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 to 25 cents when it's said and done. A CBA theoretically could be 100% to us, and then we could farm it back out through services back through the county on the back end. So it would insulate that. It is transferable with ownership. It remains in effect for the entire term of the project. Next slide, please. I'm going to give you an example of what Fresno County Fire District just did here not too long ago. They recognize they have a lot of expansion going to the north side of their county, north side of their district, I should say. They have the chunks that are unincorporated, primarily west northwest of the county, and then they come all the way down the county line and meet up with us in Avenal, and then come all the way up. And basically, our stations 1, 2, and 6 they augment heavily that south side. For Fresno County Fire. What they did was they threw basically everything in the kitchen sink into a pot and basically looked at what it cost, and then basically looked at what the production was going to be or the development of these additional facilities, and said, what do we need, not just based on what we currently have, but what are our projected needs moving forward? Include infrastructure, remodeling existing stations, new stations, additional personnel, what it was going to take in the backdrop to help recruit personnel, the communications, the HR, everything you can imagine is factored into this thing. Next slide, please. And basically they took that approach and basically then divided it out by megawatt hours of production and came up with two different styles. They recognized that the battery energy storage systems, BESS, which is the big containers that you may see out there on those that store energy, not just the solar arrays that are running across the solar panels. Those are extremely difficult to put out. And so what they did was they looked at the amount of volume of water, the amount of personnel they were going to have to deal with, what type of commitment. And some of those, if it actually gets into a BESS storage facility, you're looking at multiple days. These batteries they can be very unstable depending on what's going on, which is very frustrating to us as we're looking at fire code and they're not having to be held to that same standard because they're able to skirt it because it's a service and it's a business. So they looked at it in two aspects of it. They actually put an enhancement of 56% on the best storage component versus the photovoltaic. We do have several projects within the county that currently do not have BESS. Some of the things that are going through the application process do have it, but some of the existing projects are asking to potentially add it. They've not actually submitted the application, but conceptually they understand the dynamics of it and what it means to their business. So they're approaching it. Next slide, please. So Fresno Fire, for example, for BESS, they're doing a one-time infrastructure improvement plus the megawatt production. The first year, they're charging $6,346 per megawatt for BESS and $3,167 per megawatt for photovoltaic production. The subsequent years, after they get the infrastructure in place, they actually drop it off to $1,992 for BESS and $994 for PV. The importance of that is basically as they're standing it up, you can start infrastructure improvements such as a station, ordering your equipment, getting your recruitment started for your personnel, et cetera. I just want to put this in perspective. If we took this modeling and applied it to the GRAPE project that was just recently put through, basically the first year BESS, the way it's described, would be $951,900 one-time money. Ongoing for the BESS would be $298,000 for the life of the project. The 1 year PV, so basically when they're putting the solar arrays in, would be $780,348. So basically the startup cost for them to get it up and running would be $1.732 million. And ongoing, it would amount to $543,000 for one project. So I just want to keep that in mind as we're working through this. If you could, next slide, please. I'm sorry. Sure. So that model that they have, the 1 year for their startup on that project would be $1.732 million. And then ongoing for that project would be $543,721. And those are CPI adjustable. Correct. Correct. And in kind, we could theoretically, I mean, it's arguable. It's not even arguable. We would utilize different county departments, CDA, HR, Public Works, et cetera, to manage our projects. Obviously, there would be a pusher. I will even admit we even use the sheriff and the DA's office a little bit. Shh, don't tell them. But we actually could do push throughs on the back end to offset their costs related to their services rendered for fire on that. So there's an opportunity there on the back end of that. So this is an example of, this is not actually abnormally large BESS facility. This is what you're going to start seeing. So these containers, if you're driving around solar facilities and you start seeing these things, you'll understand what BESS is. So basically they'll store megawatts of power in there for later consumption. And they basically, when the need comes up with ISO, they let them know and they start pushing the power back into the grid. Again, lithium ion, these things are scary. I'm not going to lie. They are very scary. When we go in there, we would not have them anywhere near a residential. We always make them bury them in the middle of the facility. We're not interested in having them near any roadways and anything along those lines. We put very strict conditions on where they actually can place them on the facility themselves. So, but they do push the edge of it. They push the edge of the envelope because it's a service. They actually have these things as close as 18 inches. That's where they want to take it. 18 inches apart. Well, when it catches fire, you can't even get the door open, much less put the fire out. So it's a challenge. Next slide, please. The other alternative methodology, and this is incorporated by Imperial, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Kern counties, are a per acre fee. Basically what they did was they kind of threw everything at it and said, okay, what do we anticipate the impacts being? Now, there are various mechanisms in which they do this per acre fee. It ranges right now anywhere basically from $150. It's around that for some places. Kern County's modeling is all the way up to $1,219 an acre. These are ongoing fees. Some of them have a one-time startup fee, and then they reduce it to this. Others basically have this, and they say it has to directly impact the local community. You have to make road improvements. You have to do this. You have to do that. And they have a public steering committee that helps outline how to do that. That's, San Bernardino, it's kind of funny. I never saw this money come through my budget when I was there, but it's amazing how that bait and switch kind of happens. But that being said, they actually delegated 50-50. Actually, it wasn't 50-50. It was percentage to percentage for public safety specifically. It was sheriff fire in that case. But I don't, again, I never actually saw the formula work itself out. I think there was a general fund augmentation, and that's how they were able to supplant that in part. Again, taking that exact same grape project at 1,759 acres, if you were to apply the basically $150 an acre fee, that it's the low end threshold, you're basically looking at ongoing $263,850 a year. If you apply Kern County's model, it's at 1219 an acre, it's $2,145,000 ongoing. Next slide, please. So closing considerations, any development fee rendered, Jennifer hammered me on this one just to make sure I was good. It has to be in alignment with the services that are rendered. So we got to make sure we pass a sniff test. We can't just say it's going to be this and not be able to justify it through some type of review. When Fresno did theirs, they actually had a third party auditor come in, make sure it made sense, as long as with a consultant, made sure all the figures, facts and figures made sense. And interestingly enough, they brought a person in from Phoenix to review it, where they also have solar, and they looked at it and they said, your prices are way out of line. And then they just pushed back and said, well, what's your staffing model in Phoenix? And they realized they're not running 2-person engines, they're running 5-person engines. And so that's a huge impact. So basically you need 2.5 engines for every engine that Phoenix deploys. And so when they started looking at the dollars and cents, they're like, okay, this makes sense now. You're actually getting a good deal. So the valley is very prone to a lot of sunlight. So obviously they're not going to shy away from this. The fire department is your catalyst to get access to this revenue because of the service that we provide after the fact. And again, we're about 85% of that. Any fee that we would institute would be built into an ongoing basis as part of that for a third-party consultant. And final slide, please. So threat's real, and it's drawing from community resources that the general taxpayer is paying for. We need to keep that in mind. It's not, this is a for-profit business with shareholders that are drawing off the local community to offset their problem. In discussion with allied agencies, even these fees in place, there's no pullback or development on applications. Everybody's plowing forward. Again, the mark is by 2045, California's mandate is carbon neutral. Renewables are supposed to be offsetting everything. Developers can bake the costs into their business model, and some of them actually have as they're developing it out. And basically, the fire department's ultimately seeking guidance and direction, really on which direction you'd like us to try and pursue moving forward, or at least some input as to how we move forward on this. And again, I'm sure you're going to have some questions. I have a plethora of people available. I'd be more than happy to speak on your behalf since this is a study session.
Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. Yeah, I mean, I think that might be a fair element where we're able to regroup some costs. I get that. The situation we're having, though, is we might have to fallow half of our land. And so I think we have to take a look at it from the other perspective, too, particularly in terms of smaller farmers and how this impacts them. To basically look at how does this impact their ROI or return on investment? Because they still have to be able to make a living. And if you take their farm and cut it in half, and some of them are going to consider using this as an option, how does that impact them? So that's a major concern that I have. I understand when you get to the larger entities, the San Jose's of the world and so forth, where they come here and they buy up a bunch of acreage. And that can be helpful in the Sigma climate, but it also has to work for us. But I do have concerns there with the ROI in terms of, I wouldn't want to stifle that. I think it's important to be able to afford our engines and our staffing time and things of that nature. But I would like you guys to run the numbers essentially backward from their perspective so that we can see in the marketplace how competitive we are or not, and then adjust accordingly. But my primary focus is for the smaller farmers because I don't want to do any more damage to them.
Okay.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks, Chief, for this. I I mean, if I had a vote in this, it would be to start pursuing this revenue option. When I first was elected, I was invited to, I thought it was the San Joaquin Valley Green Energy, and it wasn't. It was Silicon Valley Green Energy, and they're right here in the south side of Hanford, and I don't know how big their lot size is, and I'm not picking on them. They've obviously done their homework. But this is why Stanford University and most of Santa Clara County call themselves green, but they're doing it on our back, right here in our backyard. And as you mentioned, our taxpayers in this county are funding this bill, and we get nothing for it, really nothing at the end of the day. And I'm sure you could raise your hands in here. Anybody's power bill gone down? No, it hasn't. And so I think it's that time to firmly plant our shovel in the ground and move forward in exploring this, because this happens, that this is on the back of us and our folks, and we get nothing for it. And I've mentioned this, that I've been part of, after I took office, the S2J2, $4 billion worth of green energy jobs coming into a 4-county region. And I keep asking the question in every meeting we have: what's in it for us? What do we get out of this? And what to our constituents do we get for having these significant solar farms and storage facilities with lithium ion? And I still don't have an answer. And it's been almost 2 years as to what we get. And this looks like a recipe that it's like, oh, this is what we could actually get. And so thank you for doing the work on it, because I think it's long overdue. And again, this is on the back of our constituents. And I understand, the small grower and the farmer that wants to do this, but I don't know if Chuck can maybe speak to it. How many massive corporations are coming into this county and developing hundreds of acres of solar? And it's not the small guy. These are big people making a lot of money off the backs of our constituents, and we're not getting anything out of it. And I think it's high time that we do. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Noel and I have, in the last few years, worked with Stanford University and visited the community quite a bit. Supervisor Thayer is correct, but prior to solar, we had no generation. All of our power came from outside. We were insulated, isolated, and not a producer. Today, we are a huge producer for the state of California. We are at literally the crossroad where the power system that moves power from the nuclear power plant to the Helms plant comes right through our county. The transmission lines that runs north and south runs right down the I-5 corridor. So we're in a great location to produce that power. Plus, we're a producer. We make power here. We don't get credit for being the greenest county in the state of California, but I guarantee you they don't load those energy on a truck and haul them to San Jose or down to Disneyland. Those little electrons are being built right here, and they're being used right here. And when the rest of the California falls off into the ocean, we're still going to have power. And the rest of the county, the rest of the counties in the state, I don't think can say that. Now, I think, we need to be generating more, more revenue. Just doing the math, that's less than half of a percent. That's only 6/1000ths of a cent what the consumer sees. But I think it's important for the consumer to understand we are a generator now. We export power. And that's where I think we shouldn't lose face either. And we should have a bigger seat at the table, because that is an important part, generating 2 or 3% of the power here locally. But when you look at how much power goes through this county, north, south, east, and west, we are literally at the crossroads of energy production in the state of California, right here in Kings County. We may not be the heart, we may not be in the center, but we are certainly the epicenter of energy. And I think we need to continue to capitalize on that. Because even though we might be 13th in the state, I think from dealing with some of the developers, I think we're in the top 2 as far as counties to work with and get things done, because we have pre-engineered a lot of the stuff that these developers look for. Access to the distribution system, the access to be able to do that. You know, Kings County, through Jimmy and the ag commissioner, we have 287 days of growing season. That's what you need in a solar plant. And so that's what they're looking for. They're looking for ground and they're looking for access to the sun. And we have that. And we do need to make a lot more effort as to capturing that, because like I say, the consumer, it will affect their kilowatt cost less than about a half a cent, a third of a cent on the production, and about a half a cent on the energy storage. So I think when you do the math and you start looking at it, to the consumer, there's not much, but to the state of California, we're literally the heart of energy, because it actually comes through here. And I want to thank Chuck Kinney. We worked a lot on some of these, and I'd kind of argue a little bit with that, some of the mapping, because some of that's flood zone. It's not going to be developed. There's no distribution systems down there that to connect to, and so they would have to build distribution systems to get them to these major megawatt of distribution systems that we're fortunate to have. So when I look at that map and I see all that green, I see green, but I don't see all of it being used. But we do need to be able to look at a better way to capture some of that revenue, because we are, like I say, the heart of California when it comes to green energy. And I guarantee you, Kings County is the greenest, greenest county in the state of California, just because it's here. But we also have, at the crossroads of all the power that California uses comes through Kings County, one way or another. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To your point, maybe Chuck can speak on one of the projects that they have pending and the business modeling. I talked about tax dollars and whatnot, or the pricing being baked in, and I know he has some information related to that.
Mr. Kenny.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Chuck Kenny, Community Development Agency. Just wanted to speak in regards to Supervisor Thayer's question about the size of solar projects. On average, our average size solar projects about 2,000 acres in size. So they're fairly large. Now we do have one application currently that we're processing that's about 20,000 acres, about 20,600. And there is great interest to bring solar into this area. The state of California is currently looking at making modifications and improvements to their substations that are in the Central Valley because of the opportunity for solar in this area, to allow for that capacity to be captured here and grow. So there is the opportunity for large growth in this area for solar. And I really just want to thank the chief for looking at this issue, because it has been a growing problem for the county as we've been going through our education of solar as we've grown. And I think it's a great opportunity to be able to ensure that the public safety is addressed in an appropriate fashion.
So I have a question. So with the Fresno model, if we were to use that as kind of our guide, do you think that are they able to regroup their costs wholly? And then also, do they still remain competitive in your opinion?
From what I'm told from the solar developers is that as long as they are able to know the cost up front, they can calculate and figure out how to make the project work. It's just that they need the information up front. They don't want it on the back end.
And have you heard much from some of the smaller growers? And are any of them converting land that they have to fallow over?
I haven't heard of any of the smaller growers looking to convert land. Generally, the solar projects are looking at larger areas to be able to make it financially feasible for a project. There were a couple of projects that came in the 2 megawatt range to 5 megawatt range, but they didn't develop. 20 megawatts is about the smallest that seems to get developed, and that's about 200 acres ish of land.
And what's the lifespan of these solar panels?
They are rated for 30 years, but that 30-year projection is that they're still producing 80 or 90% efficiency at that time. So if you've got a paid off project and you're still producing 80%, my guess is that they're going to continue to just stay there and keep producing, because why would you pull them out if you're still producing at that rate, and probably reinvest those funds into additional solar fields.
So if one of these places BKs, who's responsible to deal with these solar panels?
BKs.
Bankrupt.
Oh, bankrupt. So as part of our projects and processing of the zoning permits, we do require a project plan to be developed for recapture of the land and cleaning of the land, so that we don't have this as a permanent project out there for disturbing the land. We noticed in Fresno County, they had some projects come in, they went bankrupt, and now it is just a weed field with obstacles in the way of cleaning. So each project that has come into Kings County has developed a reclamation plan, and they finance that and provide financial surety for the county, so that should they go bankrupt, the county has funds available. We can call that money in and hire a consultant to go out and abate the project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, though, you know, some of the older solar fields, 200-acre solar field, compared to a 93-acre solar field that was developed last year, produces the same energy. So the efficiency of the panels is what's going to, I think, dictate the future. They might be a 30-year panel, but technology has improved so much. I think you're going to start seeing some of these panels rotated out every 10 or 15 years if the efficiency continues to develop.
Yeah, the panel efficiency is more than doubled just in the last decade.
The last what?
Decade.
Oh.
Yeah, and Noelle's an expert in that part, and she's gone up to Stanford and talked about that, and I think those young minds up there are just sponges wanting to soak all that up.
Yeah, Noel's been key in our solar project development and has been very vital in being able to support and educate the students at Stanford. She was invited up there to provide presentation, and just want to give her kudos and thanks for being willing to do that, and hopefully be able to get those minds thinking about impacts in our area so that they can be addressed.
Stanford campus isn't a bad place to hang out. Supervisor Valley.
And she really addresses both sides, the historical part of the archaeological importance of some of those sites, as well as the future, and back into some kind of usable state in the future. So she literally covers the entire segment of some of these development sites.
Supervisor Valley?
Sure, just a couple. Mr. Kenny, to refresh my memory, I know we talked a lot about this during the drought back in 2011-12, but is anything changed where if you're talking about a farmer wanting to fallow some of his farmland for a solar project, if the land is prime farmland, you're not allowed to do that, right? Doesn't it have to be a lower level of farmland in order to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take 100 acres and do a solar project on.
So if the property is under a Williams Act contract, then it has further restrictions on the property to require an agricultural activity. Some of the solar projects have been under those contracts that have developed, and they've done so with a combination of farming and solar, where they're grazing of sheep on the land mostly is what we've seen. That has posed some challenges. The solar industry is very good at producing energy through solar. Their farming skills are not as proficient, and have caused additional problems for our fire department to be able to abate those issues as they occur. And so you're correct that yes, if it is under a Williamson Act contract, they would not be able to develop unless there was a farming operation working with it. They can apply to cancel the contracts though. And we have had some of the solar projects apply and approved through your board to cancel those contracts in an effort to support the state's desire to go 100% renewable by 2045. And so that is an option. That's the option that we're encouraging solar developers to go instead of trying the farming and the solar, because of the problems that we've seen with fires that come up with that.
So then I guess simply in question is any farmer be eligible to request for the usage of some of their farm to do a co-op with the solar company?
It's possible. There are some requirements. They have to be within certain distances of high voltage lines to be able to connect their solar to. And then within the county, there are only a certain number of substations that have been developed by the utility companies, and they only have so much capacity at certain substations. For instance, south of NAS Lemoore, we have the Henrietta substation. It's fairly much, all the capacity has been used up by all the solar development that's out there. So if you're wanting to develop additional solar, you'd have to find another substation to be able to go to.
But can any farmer be forced to give up land for solar company?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's what I'm trying to get, just because of some of the chairman's concerns. If I'm hearing him right on this project. Switching over, I don't know who can answer this, but so community benefit funds, right? When you're talking about these massive companies, would the farmers have to pay into the community benefit fund? I don't think so, because these companies, they already have large CBFs ready to go, right? And I'll finish here, and if it looks like you're going to take up on this.
Yeah, I did want to.
Go. Okay, go.
Good morning. I did want to address Chair Robinson and your concern about farmers having to pay into a fee, to pay the fee, or into a community benefit fund, or enter into a community benefit agreement. Some of the counties that have this sort of fee in place, they do exempt producers of energy that make less than 20 megawatts, or there's some threshold where if it's less than that, they're exempt. The only caveat is that you just have to ensure that those larger producers aren't subsidizing those smaller producers. So you just structure the fee in such a way that only larger producers have to pay for the impact that they're having.
I think you have to also look at whether the grower keeps the soil, and the improvements are owned by the energy company. And I think there's only one that I know of that are in that case, but I've heard those throughout the state of California. So I think when you design the plan, because if you don't separate those two assets out, it can be a problem. So you have to separate the land out from the improvements.
And that, I think, is you're speaking more to a property tax question, where this would be
community improvement.
Right.
Yeah, community benefit.
Right.
And that's where I'm coming from, because just the little that I've experienced with community benefit funds, the companies are going to have those in place for a couple of reasons, right? One is when they're going to come into an area, and we'll say Kings County, and there may be local opposition to solar companies or projects of this nature. The community benefit funds are designed for somebody from that company to come to the community and pitch a community benefit fund to say, hey, listen, we will invest X amount of dollars. They'll listen to community. They'll get input from communities, a number of town halls or community meetings, and then figure out some needs, and then come in and say, we're going to benefit your community when this project goes forward. And so I didn't think that the farmers would have to pay into that. This is budgeted money. So going down the line, Chief, I want to say thank you to you and your fire leadership for bringing this forward, because if other counties are mandating this with solar companies and we're not, then I think we're in a position to be taken advantage of. Or more, we would get targeted more. And if we're targeted more, then maybe it affects some of the farmers that you're concerned about too, Mr. Chairman. But I believe that we've probably already been leaving money on the table, and we need to go get this money. And so this is something I would be supportive of continuing to have the conversation on to move forward. If Fresno County is doing this, and Madam Assessor, I know you know the Fresno County Assessor, Mr. Carl Dictos, he's a good friend of mine. If he's doing this that way, and I call him this evening when he's done with his board business, and he says, Supervisor, well, it'd be in a very thick Greek accent because you know how he talks, but he says, Supervisor, this is the way to go, then that's the stamp that I'm looking for. And so I don't know if there's anything you can add at this time, Madam Assessor. Do you feel this is positive, or there is the ability to create revenue here for the county? But that would go a long way with me.
Yes, I wholeheartedly support the chief and his proposal. I don't know Assessor Dictos's position on this himself, because it actually doesn't run through the assessor's office. It's going to be a separate direct charge, likely through the finance department. But it is, a big thing that's come to our county. It's been here now for quite a few years, but when you think 20 years ago, we didn't see those solar farms out there, and now we're seeing them, and more as Chuck has talked about, and the chief as well, are coming to our county. So now's the time to do it. And with the removal of the exemption as of January 1st of 27, he did talk about second owner solar, which is true. If it's changed ownership, basically, then it's not exempt. But that's been the case all along for property tax purposes. But also any new developments after January 1st of 27, those will also be accessible. So we will be getting some property tax revenue from the solar. Currently, we're still assessing the land and fencing and things like that. It's just the solar itself that's exempt. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Any more points in the question? Chief.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, you're not advocating for funds that you don't believe are never going to hit your budget, right? I got a little confused when you said San Bernardino County had an agreement in place, but you never saw this money in your budget. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, correct. So basically, there was an MOU established between the county fire district there and the county themselves for augmentation for unfunded areas of the county. Part of the reason that they did this, and predominantly this is land that's a penny on the dollar, or even there's some areas in CSA 38 out in San Bernardino County that actually had no assessed value. They had built money for federal land, et cetera. But what was happening was, as they stood this up and they started charging this fee, the idea was we would receive the additional augmentation because we need to provide the services that are rendered. Part of what occurred, I believe, was that MOU money shifted off, and it was a direct offset. As this money was brought in, it negated the MOU and released the county of their obligation to provide additional general fund support of that. Not unlike us, where we're $4 million into the general fund at this fiscal year. Obviously, that would part of it be an offset. And my point would be we could certainly push through percentages back to certain departments for services rendered directly to fire, and that's how it all captures back into the fee. Does that make sense?
Under some of the proposed language that's in the study session background, you would see direct revenue to your fire budget.
We would, correct. Yeah, we would. And then we would also, based on true costing of what we know is going to cost, we would direct push back to the general fund for those services rendered from other county departments. But we would have a direct impact. We could actually stand up additional personnel, replace facilities, replace equipment, et cetera, moving forward, directly attributable to the solar issues that is creating.
But I would want to see numbers on when you say, because you've already mentioned like 3 times this money would trickle down, and that translates to Christmas in July to department heads.
Sure.
So I want to be fair about my Christmas in July too.
Sure.
Like You have concerns, Mr. Chair, about farmers paying in and the money trickles down. Well, this is what I talk about multiple times a year, where there is a fund of money that trickles down the fire fund from my constituents out of Kettleman City. And before I ever got seated here 18 years ago, the hazardous waste tax revenue that I talk about every year, trying to get curb gutters and sidewalks and things like that built, the first 500,000 automatically goes to the Kings County Fire Fund. So my constituents are paying into something that you're questioning about right now out of farmers. And that's fine. And I've never called for the removal of those first 500,000 as much as I know that community needs money to do some things. So I'm saying if you create revenue, and I'm supportive of this, I understand how everyone formulates in the budget to pay back other departments for their time and resources, but I'm going to be looking at some of this 500,000 out of the hazardous waste tax revenue. If you get healthy enough on your budget to come back, because before I leave, that whole community of Kettleman's going to have curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And so I'll have my eye on that 500,000. So be careful on how much you're promising other department heads. You're going to get a pot of my money because I'm going to be here first. And
It's all about the art of negotiation, sir. We'll figure that out. So, but yeah, I understand that, and that's one of those things. Now that a lot of that's functional on the community benefit agreement. One thing we didn't really touch too much on, and I'd like to have Jennifer speak about it, because there's a potential if you went to a per acre fee, you could actually roll that back to existing facilities in theory on the way. And so I'd like her to talk a little bit more about that if at all possible. If you guys are willing to entertain that. Okay.
So in the chief's presentation and his staff report, he proposed two different methods of collecting from solar companies for their impact. And there are a lot of different ways that can be done. But he focused on the community benefit agreement, which is proposed to go through and be a mitigation in the CEQA process. So a new project comes in, identifies impacts such as impacts to fire service. The developer is required to mitigate those impacts. And so as part of that, they have to enter into the community benefit agreement, which requires them to pay some sort of fee upfront and then probably over time. The other way is to just charge a fee to solar companies that are existing or future of a certain amount per acre, per megawatt, whatever that fee may be. And that type of fee, if it's tied to the services that those facilities are receiving, can be charged to existing facilities and then also to anything that comes in the future. So those are two kind of different ways of collecting from the solar companies, one which would only be applicable to future projects, and then the other which could be applied to current projects.
Chuck, do you foresee in the future that some of the smaller farmers, as they're forced to take other options, would be looking at this as an option or not?
It would really depend on where they're located. I think if they were located close to existing utilities, they may look at that as a potential option. They would probably want to partner with others to make it financially feasible. Because when you say small farmer, are you talking someone less than 100 acres?
Yeah, I mean, I think originally what it was characterized to me by 60 acres or less, but yeah, let's say less than 100.
Yeah, so I would think that they would probably want to partner with others to make it financially feasible for a solar project on a commercial scale.
Okay. But there's ways around that, as you were saying, Jennifer, right? I mean, you can make exemptions for smaller farmers if you need to.
Yeah, so other counties have done, they set a minimum megawatt production, but you could do minimum acres or whatever threshold you wanted to kind of insulate those smaller producers.
Other questions or comments? Supervisor there.
Yeah, just one more comment. And I'm not gonna name names partly because I don't remember who the group was, but on the community benefit fund, can you force those dollars to stay local within the geographical boundaries of Kings County? Because I say this the Silicon Valley one, and people can go research it all they want. You know, I was grateful to see that there was a large chunk. I want to say it was like $250,000 was going to go to KCAO for like the weatherization projects that they have. but I want to say there was like a total of $2 million. Don't quote me on it, but I want to say it was a lot of money. The local agency KCAO received, let's just say $250,000, and an agency that is not in this county, that is outside of this county, where their board of directors don't live in this county, got the rest of it. And it just really ticked me off that on the backs again of Kings County residents is this significant solar project on the south end of Hanford out in the industrial park area. And this money went out of our county. And I looked, and I'm sure I spoke to some of you up here. I know I spoke to, I think, every city council member in Hanford, and it all went under everybody's nose. Nobody even knew it occurred. And it was frustrating. And so it's like, it's high time that we stand up for our county and our constituents and our folks, especially on the heels with this S2J2 project coming in, that this someone, I don't know who's going to do it, is going to have to build new transmission lines to push this power up and down the state of California, because what we have is tapped out. So at some point in time, that's, like high-speed rail blasted right through the middle of this county. So is this next project, whenever that's going to take place, to move this power out. But I think this is good news for our constituents, and not that it's going to lower anybody's power bill, but you're going to get better service out in your community, and if you live local, it's going to impact you, I think, in a better. At least you know that whatever you're paying for is going to go to a better cause than what it has been. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess I'd like to hear from Madam CEO on this as well, as I know these are challenges to her county budget as it relates to fire as well. Is this something that you think positively on and like to see us go down this road?
Yes, I do think that other counties have done these similar agreements already. And so we are a little bit behind on some of these agreements that we should have in place. There is definitely some resources available that some of our parties have brought forward and are sharing those resources with us. We actually did talk to our state lobbyist last week, and he gave us some contacts and said that absolutely this is an opportunity for counties.
Yeah. And Madam Assessor, just some active listening here, but if I'm hearing you right, we need to act on this shortly, only because it's a potential missed opportunity, right? Because of the 2027 assessment.
Well, I think it would be in the manner you structure it. So if it's based on the megawatts going forward, or on the land acreage going forward, I think the fire chief talked about, or maybe Jennifer, I'm sorry, talked about how they don't want something that's going backwards. Basically, if it can be figured into a new contract, the solar companies can accept it easier. That's a different pay grade than I'm at, but I think that's the consideration, because with the new companies coming in, we probably would want this in effect as soon as possible, because since the exemption part is off of them, then I think it opens it up a little more for consideration at that point.
If this were to be passed shortly, would this large solar project we're talking about, would it be pertinent to this or not? Or we've missed that window? Chuck?
So we're currently creating an environmental document for that large solar project. We're still in the review phase, and if we were to go down the community benefit agreement process, that could be a way to mitigate that impact within the CEQA document. So we're not too late.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
The other part of that, Mr. Chair, is that these developers also have to have a contract with the independent service operator, the ISO. And so a lot of the projects that don't go forward in Kings County are not because of our efforts, it's because of the energy regulators themselves. And so we only control what we have locally. And we will have to work with some of our state people to be able to incorporate that in. And that's why it's prospectively, because when they negotiate those contracts, they're all locked in. And so I don't want to go back retroactively, because it's not going to benefit anybody. But prospectively, we need to start capitalizing in on some of this because, again, a lot of these developers that come and look and speculate of sites, it has nothing to do with Kings County. It has something to do with the independent service operator that operates the energy distribution in the state of California.
Mr. Chair, if I may make a comment.
Yeah, please.
So Julieta Martinez, Economic and Workforce Development Director, but I'm actually a dual role. So today I'm coming to you as the President and CEO of the Kings County Economic Development Corporation. And I just want to touch on a couple points that were made today. A lot of valid concerns I'm hearing from this board, but I just want to share the S2J2, which is the Sierra 2 San Joaquins. It was one of the 13 regions with the California Jobs First that was formed by the state of California. I've been on that regional table since January of 2023, so over 3 years now, and it's been a really interesting ride. I think I'm the only person from King separate from the 4-county coordinator committee that has maintained that communication. And I'll tell you that these solar development and large scale projects have been very much of interest to a lot of outside agencies. It has been an ongoing topic of discussion. And so I'm not taking a formal position. What I'm saying is I'm always supportive of local control and local decision making because it could be 10, 15 years out, but clearly it's caught the attention of organizations that are not in this county. And it's the same questions being asked. What are the benefits and what are we getting out of these developments? And if you look at a lot of your neighboring counties, they have built different type of agreements and incentives for either their departments, for trust, or whatever you would like to do with it. But you can't allocate funds that you don't pursue. So I think the reason you're here today is because you do have these large scale developments knocking at your door. They're here for a reason, and they know that any other place, they'd probably have to go through this process. It'd be more intensive, and they would be subject to these fees. And this comes from just years of work with other peers up and down the valley. So just, if anything, I think it's always great to have local control and just oversight over this type of situation. Thank you.
Chief.
Yeah, just one follow-up. I think the labor unit wanted to also address the issue moving forward.
Okay. Hello, Ed.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So we are bring it back to a little of our level of we are the direct impact of what's going on with these solar farms. I work at Station 7, South Lemoore, and we've been going to quite a bit of fires out there. And the problem with these fires is the amount of time and resources they eat up. So like Chief said in his PowerPoint, it's a minimum of 4 hours, and we're calling in other stations. And because of, I can tell you, responding out to the first hour, we're just trying to find our access and somebody from that site to confirm with us that they shut this power down, because the life safety and the threat out there is huge. There's so much electrical coming in. It's daytime. Those thousands of volts are being produced, and there's wiring, and there's all kinds of technical out there, storage, the battery storage units. We've had inverter fires out there, inverters exploded, and it's all natural with that size of a production facility. It's, mechanical failures happen, and it seemed like May and June we were going to at least once a shift to a solar incident out there, sometimes two, sometimes multiple fires on one incident. So when we're mitigating these incidents, they take a lot of time. And like I said, the first hour is just making sure everything's shut off. And we get on scene, we have to wait for a tech or a site manager to confirm that. And then even they take their time because they want to make sure, all avenues are exhausted, that we don't go in there and fry ourselves. So after that, then we mitigate the incident. And however size the incident is or what's on fire, it's additional hours. So that gets to the point of resource drawdown on already a spread thin fire department in the county. We bring all of our resources into this incident. That leaves the rest of the county uncovered. And we have to rely on mutual aid. We have to rely on bringing stations that are on our outside boundaries in. And it really brings our response times down to really triples the times to response times. So now the burden of the county is taken this from this industry. And it's good that we have this industry growing in Kings County. We're energy producers, but with that growth other agencies have to grow with it. They've proven time and time again that they heavily rely on the fire department. We were out there. It's just a continuous growth of incidences that are out there, and we got heat, the sun. We got mechanical out there, mechanical failures, vegetation fires. We've had, due to a vegetation fire on one of the big Mustang solar fields, we had a 13-car pileup from all the smoke. So then we have to go and mitigate that incident too. There's just a lot of trickle down effect from it. So we are, I would say, probably the most affected by this. And however we see to go after some funding for this, I mean, sooner the better, because it's a real drawdown. It's real time consuming. It's dangerous, but we've had some good training on these sites. We pretty much have to take a cautious defensive approach to these sites, and around the boundaries of these sites. We can't go in there, but there's just too much going on, and we're not going to jeopardize, hurting or killing anybody over the solar fires. So we really appreciate it for the chief. I was glad he was going to do this presentation, because we just started talking about it as these incidents kept growing more and more, and we needed to do something about this. So when he was presenting this, I wanted to come say a few words to that matter, because it's really
I got a goat question for you.
Yeah.
So they use them for the weed mitigation part of it. Do they get into the wires too and cause problems?
The goats, yes. Yeah. We've had a lot of fires, actually goats getting caught up on the rays. The rays adjust to the sun, and they get stuck in there and kind of mess up the equipment. Anyway, that's not our problem. But so, our fires out there, they range from electrical failures. A lot of electrical failures could have been from chewing on the wires, because they have these wires that run from panels.
This is just getting a little too serious. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But,
he was commenting on my barbecue comment.
Yeah.
Months ago.
Oh, was that the same incident? Oh, yeah. Well,
Don't go there. Move on.
yeah. So we want to say it's a real drawdown to the county. We have, most of our stations are 2.0, so we have to have the right personnel, the amount of personnel out there to mitigate these incidences due to safety and the threat out there. So that's a huge drawdown in the county, and then it really increases our response times. So,
President.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm glad this gentleman came to the podium, Chief. You should have opened up with this, because just what the gentleman just said makes this a no-brainer. I mean, to hear about everything you have to do to respond to a solar fire, and the thought of anyone even getting electrocuted never crossed my mind. The fact that you have to wait to make sure these things are powered down, and then pray that nobody messed up their job in doing so as you guys go in there and start turning on water. This is almost like, with the amount that may be coming of these types of projects, an overall community benefit plan should be looked at, to where this creates just one brand new fire station that is there on standby for these types of fires. And when there's not a solar plant fire, it's a station that could be strategically deployed out to support other parts of the county. When you look at just what the tribe does with the casino and the ladder trucks, and the negative impacts that are looked at by county leadership and tribal leadership, it's almost like that same model should be applied to solar in Kings County to mitigate. And we're talking more than just not one fire truck or two fire trucks bought by solar companies, but it should. I think there's some anchors there to really dig in and to build a case on that, Mr. Chair. So thank you for representing the men and women who are out there actually dealing with this too, because those are the real impacts there. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just one quick question. I don't know, Chief or Chuck, how many acres did we say we're currently?
18 and some change, 18,000 and some change, and currently under consideration is another additional 20.
Is another 20. So currently 8. So it's planned. And I say this with all due respect, because that I understand that there's a lot that have already planted their feet here in this county and whatnot. But if staff's taking direction, I think we at least need to look at something, not nothing, but something. And I don't know if an inflator should be built into that, because again, they're getting 18 is getting it for free. The next 20 aren't potentially, and I just think out of a matter of fairness that we need to look at that. Not saying go and do a cannonball in their pool and completely disrupt what the 18 has, but it's something that we as the government should look at as going, we have things that we have to pay for. You're going to have to help pay for them. And that's just the way this all works. It happens every time we go buy something in the store with sales tax, or fuel tax, or whatever else. So I would just respectfully just say that we should at least look at something.
And to answer your question to some degree, I've kind of thought that through. We could get a very aggressive, if they're not paying part of some CBA or something along those lines, we could get fairly aggressive on cost recovery. And basically, when you do the cost recovery, it's not just cost recovery directly related to the incident. It's system-wide, global cost recovery, what it's costing us with staffing, whatever else, having to move manpower around, the depreciation on the apparatus. We can factor all that into that for those hours that are there. And it could be very, very pricey on the back end. So I have thought that, gone down that line. We're not there yet. I'm just looking for more guidance on the front end moving forward to protect that. And then we can work backwards. I'm finally getting ahead of everything. We're getting to the point where I can actually be progressive in some of this stuff.
Pitch it as a one-time payment spread out over 20 years.
Well, there's lots of different ways you can. It's all about the sell, right? It's the art of the deal. So.
And the other thing is the EV charger stations. I think Station 7 is going to impact as well as the city of Lemoore with that solar development there for EV vehicle charging. And it's a smaller component, but when you start looking at the Kettleman City, Avenel, some of these independent off the grid charging stations, I think has a lot of liability and potential there too. So I think it's good to look at the large commercial developers because that's where the dollars are, but we shouldn't lose sight of these electric vehicle charging stations because I think the potential of life problems are greater there than they are in some of these other large, because during the drought, there was no growth. It was only when the wet years come along and you had vegetation growth that you had fuel to be able to create the problem we're having. So we could get ahead of that curve and prevented the fires would be a big component of it. But as Ed pointed out, a lot of these are mechanical devices that fail. They have EV vehicles that fail. And we need to upgrade our services just because the technology is changing rapidly. And the only way to stay ahead of that is to have a source of money that can keep us moving forward. But I think I'm just as afraid of that solar charging there at Lemoore High as I am, a 100-acre development, because the 100-acre development I have a little bit of control of, or I can just isolate it and cut it out. When you put something on a high school campus, a college campus, Harris Ranch at I-5 and 198, there's a tremendous amount of potential there for life consequences. And I think we need to be aiming in that direction as well. And because those we don't get any revenue from either, but yet it helps the EV vehicle owners motor through their life changing events as well. Everybody that buys one of those cars love them, and there's some couple of guys that I would never thought would have bought an electric car that love them. But exactly, but they don't pay their fair share.
Oh, hey.
And that's what has me a little bit concerned when somebody goes out there and steals a cable off of them, and the next person comes along and doesn't understand that, and it's raining or it's wet, or there's just too many things can go wrong with that industry that we probably need to be a little bit ahead of as well.
And if I can just make one more comment to Supervisor Alley's point where he mentioned one station, in reality, Fresno Fire's model, just so we're all on the same page for commonality. Their modeling is 5 newly staffed, fully built fire stations only because of the solar projects, 4 fully remodeled fire stations to support the existing operations, and augmented staffing along the way. That's how you get to those numbers. And they're upwards, depending on when it's fully built out in the production that's going to be available, anywhere between $30 and $50 million annually, just for the solar issues going on. So I'm just putting in perspective so we're all on the same page. It's not.
So that wasn't a big ask. That wasn't a wild idea.
No, it's a no, that's what I'm saying. In reality, that's why I brought up, and maybe I didn't tie that in well enough. When I pointed out all our stations and the age, in reality, this is an opportunity, since they're all potentially serving this as it grows out and the footprints get bigger. It's not just a new station here or a new station there. It's potentially rebuilding and remodeling to accept modern apparatus and move forward. So maybe I wasn't clear on that. I apologize for that. But I wanted to make sure that you guys were fully aware of what's burdened in that cost that we would be asking for.
And I think the tangent of that is the e-vehicle, fire potential, the
Correct.
batteries and all of the problems, traffic accidents, that it doesn't have to be an energy problem. It could just be a traffic accident with an EV vehicle involved.
That's a whole nother animal we're working on trying to deal with. Yeah.
So you have to be able to, and I just like to tie that all in together.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you think we should wrap this up there's tremendous amount of information to absorb. The board had a really good discussion and feedback from folks who came up. If time permitted, maybe the direction of the staff is to tailor down to some of the concerns, some of the options of how far back do you go, and the concerns that Sue Neves had with that, and then some of the thoughts Sue Thayer had with that. On whether or not to even tap in a little bit on the existing 18 and how we move forward on any future plans. But maybe we just bring something back a little bit more clear now. Before.
Yeah, a little more honed in, maybe with some numbers, some projections with a couple of different models, maybe.
Sure. Are you looking for something to move on at that point, or are you looking for another study session?
I would think something to move on, right?
You've answered a lot of my questions. I think I'm good.
I think the only question I have is how do you audit the electric generation? Because when they build a 100 megawatt, 1,000 megawatt, 100 million, and the ISO only gives them to operate 12 hours a day instead of, how do you do an audit? Is it built on the potential?
Correct.
Or is it what?
It's built on what they're structured to be able to produce if they turned it all on. We don't base it on megawatt hour production.
Okay.
We base it on megawatt productivity capability. And that's really what it is. And likewise, if you were to look at it per acre fee, a lot of times these things have this giant footprint, but in reality, they're only developing out 70% of it, 80% of it. They put a lot of width, undeveloped territory in there. So the project may be 20,000 acres, but maybe only 15,000 of it's actually developed. Yeah. And so you could look at it, if there are applications for 20, you could bill them for all 20, or you could actually hone it down and say, show us what you actually have. Let's map it out and actually see what that looks like. So, but I've got the message as far as the acre thing, because you don't want to retro back. I understand that part of that. So we'll look at more what the CBA would look like, and I can come back with you with total costing. Really, it's not going to be Christmas for the department heads, I promise, but we'll definitely figure out what true costing should actually be with the enhanced service levels that we anticipate we need to do it. Keep in mind, if we upstaff those apparatus that are surrounding them to 3, that might take less resources long term. We're only talking about 4 engines because it's a small incident. If it's an escalating incident and it's out of control and it escapes the solar field, it's off to the races and all hands are on deck. And we're potentially drawing 7 stations, which we have had happen. We actually had one not too long ago, as a matter of fact. So this is one of the things I was talking about, how they're pushing the boundaries. Literally, the current aspect that we do is 400 by 400 foot blocks, and they should have some type of road in between the arrays. They're reading it, and to their point, our language is a little light. Basically, they're looking at it as 400 foot separation, but the arrays, they can run for a mile. Well, do we really want to be chasing a fire for a mile 400 feet wide? No, we don't want to do that. We're trying to do that. So they're looking at every opportunity they can to bend every and of whatever word you want to throw in there, to their benefit. So we're really having to to keep a tight leash on this. And that's what we're looking for the guidance and the input, and this will help us even further.
So you think the temperature, the appetite of the board is direct staff to bring something back, to take action?
I don't think we need another study session. What do you gentlemen think? Yeah.
Or agenda or you're saying that ability to move forward with direction. I mean, we don't have an agreement from this today.
It's just a study session today. We're just talking about it as a study session. I think if you just brought us back a couple of options with some numbers, I think we might be ready to make some decisions.
Okay.
Especially on the perspective. That didn't work on some.
You're saying don't have a scenario that includes even a one-time fee to the pre-existing projects.
Well, some of them have already bought fire.
So some of them purchase type 3s for us to help mitigate it, but there's others. Yeah.
Just moving forward.
Just moving forward, because you're going to get stuck in the weeds if you start looking back to all of them that happened in the past, because some of them did different things.
We just look at as your grandfather.
I think well, again, I go back to, I think what the avenue of that is basically we could adjust cost recovery under the master fee schedule moving forward. And basically we could set an hourly billable rate that makes logical sense.
And that needs to happen for sure. But I don't know if you can, go back ready.
And I don't know how fair that stuff is anyway. Every time the state of California makes something like that, I say, it's not fair because they didn't know that going in.
Right.
And they've already made their agreement. Now we have to move forward.
Exactly.
A lot of them sold hands.
Right.
People that came in and built it, they sold off on.
Yeah.
Mustang 1 and 2 was Goldman Sachs investment. They sold it off as soon as it was completed.
Yeah.
So they've changed hands of owners over and over. So it's.
Yeah. And not all of them are California. Old Dominion has bought some of them. Yeah. And so, there's energy companies that are in that business. There's developers and there's operators, and they're not necessarily the same business. So the developers will make it, and the operators will buy it. And then that's where they continue to make the money. And they're looking more at the contract.
Chief, bake your numbers to where we can get that $500K back for curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Okay.
Overpass.
No, curb, gutter, sidewalk.
Okay, I won't buy any more. I won't buy any more fire trucks on CDBG. How's that? Thank you. Okay, thank you for your time.
All right, Chief. Thank you. We'll save some goats too. All right. Anybody else on the board? Last call. Anybody in the audience? All right. Very good. Thank you for that. Supervisor Nebbs, you want to get us started?
You want to do that? Or you want to go Cal PFA? Or do you want to do that? You want to wrap?
Let's see what time are we at for Cal PFA?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Very good.
Thank you, Chair. Doug and I attended the Lemoore Fire Department dinner on Tuesday night, the 11th. Had a great meal, visited with friends, planned the fast approaching Christmas season, 128 days, if anybody's counting. A big thank you to Dave Costa for the invite, and also a congratulations to Dustin Costa on his promotion to battalion chief for the city of Hanford. So thank you very much. Doctor's appointment, Kathy followed up with a cataract surgery, good, and scheduled the other eye for September 21st. So my nursing duties are not done yet. Continue to visit Thursday night market, produce, cantaloupes, white peaches, nectarines, still a lot of vegetables and food available on Thursday nights. Best Buy Market in Lemoore showcased Poppy's sausage on Saturday the 15th, highlighted the old family recipe of German sausage, a wide variety of spicy breakfast, jalapeno cheddar, Italian, and raisin, made in Reedley, sold in Lemoore at Best Buy Market. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing significant. Met with some constituents, again, over potential future data centers and just concerns in the District 5 area that didn't have copy with constituents on that. I'll pass on to Supervisor Valley. Thank you.
Supervisor Valley.
I'll be brief too, Mr. Chair. Mr. Harold Reed from Home Guard and Community Service Districts. He was here in the audience earlier, but I didn't think he had to leave and go attend. He takes care of his wife and our health situation, but I was hoping he was going to be here. I want to thank him for being here. I know he wanted to express his gratitude for the board's help with the funding to help with the restroom repairs. and the used generator for their water district. So I'll relay that gratitude again from them. I'll be attending their Home Guard and Community Services District, the first meeting in September. I'm working with their director to get just make a brief presentation, the check presentation. I'd like to go do that and invite anyone from the board or staff who may want to join me on that. And then we'll do that for Corcoran City Council as well on the check for the public safety equipment that we were able to help deliver. Lastly, I want to thank our Ag Commissioner, Jimmy Hook, who's sitting in the back. There's a priority issue, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I talked much about it, but there on the south side of the county through the Tule, right, Jimmy, is the issue of alligator weed. And I don't know much about it. I started learning a little bit about it after it was brought to my attention. But this weed that is growing in the channel will be a problem in the next flood. As you know, this weed traps the water and gets it to start circling, and that current of water just eats through the channel, and then you have water coming from the south side of Corcoran into the north side of Corcoran for potential flooding in the city. So these are mitigation efforts. This weed is hard to get rid of. I went out there with Eric Hansen a couple months ago, and we drove down the canal banks, and as he's pointing out, the growth. And then the fact that it comes from upstream, which is Tulare County. So if Kings County, we're doing something about it, but Tulare County is not doing anything about it, then this weed's going to continue to come downstream and be a problem. So Jimmy did a very good job of bringing both parties to the table. He has Tulare County leadership on board and at the table. There was a meeting held last week as a follow-up, and he's doing a good job here on how we can try to get something done and get some help and possibly some funding help dedicated at Tulare County to take care of their issue. When you're standing at the bridge, Jimmy, what's that street where it divides Kings County on one side of the bridge? 4th Avenue. You guys have all been there more than me, but you know, you're standing on the bridge. To the west is Kings County, and to the east is Tulare County. So you see all the alligator weed right now where there's no water in the channel coming from Tulare County, and you just see how it kicks up on the county side. So that's going to need a co-op. I know the fire chief was at the table and has some ideas there, and so that's something that will be helpful as well from on the Fed side. You know, when it floods again, the feds are going, and we go ask for money. The feds are going to say, well, "What did you do differently from the last flood until this flood? If you didn't have any serious mitigation efforts, and this time it's your fault." And so this is going to be a large piece of evidence on a tremendous amount of work it would take to just try to make some kind of an impact on this alligator weed. So thanks again, Jimmy. Appreciate your focus on this priority issue in my district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The other part of that is also it stagnates the water and makes mosquitoes. So another party you should have at the table is a mosquito victim, because that is a big problem for that. And I can tell you how to fix it, but EPA probably wouldn't like it. Because the alligator weed is one of those, you chop it, it just propagates it. You really need to have an aquatic spray to kill it. And there are a couple of sprays out there, but and I've got a couple of guys fired over it, but yeah, you know, it is efficient and effective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Not much for me. Yesterday, I attended the homeless collaborative meeting. Let's see. Samuel's House is going to open on September 1st. And then at Centennial Park on September 26th, they're going to have Recovery Day. And then also KCAO's low barrier 200-bed shelter. I think they currently have about 6.5 million, but they're $2 to $3 million short. So if there's anybody out there that wants to donate to that cause, much appreciated. They believe they'll start on that first phase in September. And then I think we're looking at the beginning of 2028. Is that right, Rose? 2028 for the first phase. But everything's on the table. They're taking a look right now at the beds. I mean, the beds, it might actually go down to 100. We just don't know. So much of it has to do with funding. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board received correspondence dated August 10th from Joseph regarding a chronic nuisance complaint related to a 10-year-old ongoing illegal use of firework violations in Armona. The board received the July 2026 monthly Kings County Investment Pool Transaction Activity Report on August 11th from the Finance Department. For upcoming events, Kings County Behavioral Health will host its Mental Health Family Member Support Group tonight, Tuesday, August 18th from 5:30 to 7:30 here on campus. Kings County Library will host its movie time at the library at Stratford Branch tomorrow, Wednesday, August 19th at 3 p.m. And Kings County will host its final budget presentation hearing on Monday, August 24th, starting at 10 a.m. here in our board chambers. For upcoming agenda items, the following agenda items are for August 25th. There are 17 items. We have the budget book photo contest winner, the resolution proclaiming September 2026 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, an agreement amendment for legal services with Peterson LLP Legal Services. Ag Commissioner has one item on a cooperative agreement with the state. Behavioral Health has an item on regarding the Behavioral Health Advisory Board annual report. CDA has one item on a monthly reporting to the Planning Commission action. District Attorney has two items on some sharing agreements and certification, allowing them to be continue some participating sharing program and continued participation in Victim Witness Assistance Grant Program. Election has one item on an agreement for election service and equipment. Health has four items, an amendment to a management and training and associate. For training and associates, a first amendment to Fresno Pacific University internship agreement, an agreement with California Health Collaborative, and lastly, an MOU with Reef Sunset Unified School District. Job training has one item regarding Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Mass Subgrant agreement with the California Employment Department of Workforce. And Public Works has three items: the Federal Emergency Agency 2023 flood bridge repairs, the Houston Avenue Bridge project administrative settlement, and the Houston Avenue Bridge replacement construction engineering service agreement and construction service contract agreement that will take place on the 25th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will consider the following items in closed session today. Item 1, conference with labor negotiators, all units. Item 2 has been pulled. Item 3, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, City of Avenel v. County of Kings. Item 4, conference with legal counsel, people of the state of California v. Alvaro Preciado et al. Item 5, conference with legal counsel, taxpayers of the City of Avenel v. City of Avenel. Item 6, conference with legal counsel, Federated Mutual Insurance Company v. County of Kings. Item 7, conference with legal counsel, heirs of Flores v. County of Kings. And item 8, conference with legal counsel, heirs of Natividad v. County of Kings. With that, I will turn it over to you for public comment.
Are there any public comments at this time? All right, seeing none, let's see. We are going to adjourn, and then we're going to go into California Public Finance Authority, and then we're going to go into closed session after that. The next special meeting will be for fiscal year 26-27 final budget hearings. It'll be held on Monday, August 24th, 2026 at 9 a.m. And the next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 25th, 2026 at 9 a.m. 11:28, we're adjourned. Thank you.